Let's switch in English again. We are 40 days before the European elections, and it would be paradoxical or even an omission if we did not include in the AGORA program a section on political trends and the consequences for EU policies following the results of the 2024 European elections. For this, I invited one of the most important experts from Brussels, the dearest Doru Frantescu. He's Romanian. He's the CEO and founder of EUmatrix.eu, which is an EU-focused research platform adapted to the digital age. It combines expert insight and digital technology to provide factual and objective information on how the EU political machinery works. They collect publicly available information from a variety of sources which they then structure and interpret the information based on their experience in order to deliver unbiased assessments for both professionals and the public at large. Through these assessments, they help at understanding where each political entity actually stands on hot topics when European debates take place and decisions are made. Dear Doru, thank you for being today in Athens with us. We had you last year at the same forum through a video conference. Today we're happy to have you here in person. I would like to also thank Tásos SYKAKΗS, where is Tásos? Tásos is here, who will be the moderator of this session, or he will be making comments. Tásos has been, and he is still, an EU affairs expert as well, but both from the other side of the river, as he used to be until very recently, senior manager on external affairs Europe of Philip Morris Brussels, the Bureau of Brussels, the Brussels office, and now he came back to Athens, to the Greek affiliate Papastratos. Doru, you have the floor for the next 20 minutes. We're heading at the end of the program, but I think we're all very looking forward to listening to you, both. You will need the podium. Huh? Yes, okay. You will need the clicker as well?
I could use it, yes. All right. Thank you very much. Good evening, everyone. I know I'm between you and the dinner, but I hope we will have an interactive session. My role here is to help you take a deep dive into the European elections, which are ahead of us. And these, as you can assume, they are very important elections because much more is at stake than we believe. We expect a reshape of the European institutions after these elections. There will be new people in the European Parliament, in the European Commission, new majorities, and things will be different in the next political cycle than they have been until now. So this is why we're here, and I've been doing this presentation to a very wide range of stakeholders, private sector, the European institutions, and national governments. Everyone is looking at the same data across the continent and is trying to understand if indeed we're going in these directions. We are about 6 weeks from the elections. We have enough data to project how these elections are going to go and also what we are going to expect for the next 6 months after the elections, when we'll have the negotiations, and then for the next 5 years of the political cycle. I will start by talking about the mood of the European society, because it is this that determines the way the people are going to vote. We can't just simply talk about the results. We have to understand why we're going to see the results that we're going to see. And there will be a lot of discussion about whether these elections are a referendum on Europe. There will be the rise of, let's call them, right of EPP parties. But before I'm going to show you to what extent we will see that kind of rise, I want us to understand the context and why that happens. And that happens not because there is a rise in this anti-EU sentiment, as the narrative of part of the media might tell us during this campaign, because this is not the case. The data shows us that over the past 10 years, the trust in the EU institutions across the continent has been stable, and in some cases, in some countries, it has actually gone up. This is the Eurobarometer data over the past 10 years. The EU average has gone up. Even in Greece, it seems to be going up. yeah, as well as in other countries. We're doing the worst in terms of trust in the institutions in the core of the EU, actually, in countries like France or Spain. So this will not explain the outcome of the election. Other pieces of data will explain more the outcome of the elections that we're going to see ahead of us. And these are more the concerns of the population. What are the people concerned about across the EU? By now, we have one outstanding concern, and that is inflation, the rise in the cost of living, which is somewhat different across the continent than where we were 5 years ago. 5 years ago, issues like environmental protection, climate change were higher on the agenda, and as we know, this translated into policy directions of the Commission, the famous Green Deal. Now we're in a different situation. Now the cost of living is the top concern of the population, which also explains the change in the narrative of some of the political leaders. Across the countries, fight against rising prices is the top concern. This applies also in Greece. Yeah? So Greece is the second most concerned country about the rising prices after Portugal. So there is deep concern about this. The top concern is also the fight against unemployment, where also Greece is third. Yeah? So the Greeks are very concerned about this compared to other countries. Now, there are a few charts that explain the frustration that we're seeing among the citizenry across Europe. This is how the European citizens, compared to other regions of the world, answer to the question of whether they think the children today will have a better or worse life than the current generation. And this is something a bit concerning because we are here. We are that minus 4%. That means that Europeans are much more pessimistic compared to any other people, any other regions in the world, including the North Americans, the other comparatively developed region of the world. Why is that? Well, the reasons can be many, but one of them is the economic stagnation or quasi-stagnation that we have been confronted with over the past more than 10 years since the financial crisis. So there is accumulated frustration in the society. If we look at the data broken down by countries, Italians are the most pessimistic about the direction in which their country is going by far. I think they're topping this ranking. Then we have the French, Spanish, and a bit also the Greek citizens as well. So these citizens are concerned about the direction things are going, and if you are concerned, if you don't like the direction in which your country is going, what are you going to do? You usually vote for new trends, new directions, new politicians, or new approaches to politics. Across Europe and across the democratic countries around the world, what we're seeing over the past 10 years is an increasing difficulty of the political leaders to run their countries. It is much harder now for prime ministers and presidents to stay popular for a long time while in government. The more you stay in government, the more you become unpopular. This is the favorability index, which measures how the citizens are answering to the question, do you overall think that your political leader is doing a good job or a bad job? Yeah, it's a simple question, and every citizen understands whatever they want to understand. But that measures a bit the level of the sentiment of the citizens towards their leaders. We always take as a benchmark for this the American president, because in America, in the US, we have a binary choice, either Democrat or Republican. Usually, if the president is Democratic, then the Republicans dislike them and the other way around. And then there are a few swing voters there. That's why, in general, someone like Biden, for example, is at minus 15. They're usually slightly on the negative. Comparatively to the American president, however, all of the European leaders are doing worse. And that is because the political system in Europe across the countries is becoming more and more fragmented. We have more and more parties, and the power is more fragmented between them. That means whomever is not supporting the party of the prime minister usually says that the prime minister is doing a bad job. The only ones which are on the positive in this chart, which are being approved by their citizens, is those who have very recently come to power, as Mr. Tusk in Poland. That's where they start. They start on the positive, and then the more they stay in power, the faster they become unpopular. Now, this is how democracy is supposed to work. This is how the democratic system is built. You stay in power. In time, you cannot deliver all of the promises that you have made during the electoral campaign. Obviously, at some point, people will want to replace you with someone new. That's called alternation to power, and it's supposed to work like this. However, the problem that we're having over the past decade is that now you're becoming unpopular much faster than before. Whereas someone like Macron is at minus 48, which is a terrible score to be able to run your country properly. So he's there after something like 7 years in government. Someone like Mr. Scholz, the chancellor in Germany, is at minus 51 after only 2.5 years in government. This is unprecedented around Europe in general, and certainly in Germany. We have never seen this in the past a few decades in Germany. Which means what? Which means that things are becoming a bit more unpredictable across the continent. So we're talking about the national governments, the national parliaments, changing their leaders faster. And I think this chart also points it. This is the big pillar in this chart is how long the governments should last in each country according to their constitution. The blue part is how long they last in practice. In other words, governments are being replaced much faster than they should, according to their constitutions. In countries like Romania and Bulgaria, the average lifespan of a government was less than 1 year over the past decade. So prime ministers and ministers being changed much faster. The same goes for more conservative countries like even Austria or even in France. In France, it's a presidential system, but even there, we're seeing governmental reshuffles more often. Which means what for the public affairs professionals? It means that their job is becoming harder, but more needed at the same time. Harder because you have to liaise with new people all the time. You have to figure out what these new people in the governmental apparatus are supposed to do, what their policies will be. And you also have to befriend them, try to establish new relationships. But certainly more needed because the companies and the stakeholders do need stronger public affairs apparatus to stay connected to the government and make sure that the new political leaders, the new people at the higher echelons of the administration know your issues, know what they're doing, and factor in your interests and your views, your side of the story into the policy making. How about the European leaders? There is a measurement of the popularity of the current leader of the Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, which is mixed. So she's not doing good. She's not doing too bad either. The French see the current president of the Commission in the least popular view, let's say. You see the French, Hungarians, and Czechs are the ones who dislike the current president of the Commission the most. Whereas von der Leyen is more popular in Scandinavia and Iberia among the Spanish and the Portuguese. Greeks have mixed feelings about von der Leyen. Now, that was as a matter of introduction before I show you the current projections of the European elections, which look a bit like this. Now, the top two political families, the EPP and the Socialists, will pretty much stay at the same size as they have now. Their changes in number of seats are in the margin of error. The changes will occur more in the political family of Macron, Renew, which will lose some seats, and the Greens as well, they are projected to lose a substantial amount of seats. The gains being made by the groups, let's call them to the right of the EPP. The Conservatives and Reformists and the Nationalists will get a lot of green there. Where from? Well, the nationalists of the so-called ID group, mainly from Germany and France. Marine Le Pen is likely to come at the top in the elections in France, while the alternative for Germany in Germany will also get quite a few seats there. Whereas in the ECR family, there we have the Brothers of Italy, Meloni's party, which will get a substantial delegation. This is a trend over the past 15 years. The blue line, that's the EPP. They have always been the biggest, but they are shrinking. The line at the bottom of the chart is the combined forces of everything that is to the right of the EPP, evolving over 15 years since 2009 and growing. Which brings us to the potential majorities that we'll have in the next parliament. The centrist majority will still be there. So EPP Socialist and Macron's Renew family, when they agree, they will have about 57% of the seats. When they disagree, however, and they do disagree on regulatory matters, they disagree on environmental regulation, they disagree on energy, they disagree on internal market, pharmaceutical regulation, for example, intellectual property rights, that's more a left versus right struggle. When that will happen, the outcome will be almost very hard to guess. It's 50-50. No matter how you combine the political forces, you're very close to 50. Nobody will have a clear majority. Moreover, you have to keep in mind that groups in the European Parliament are not as cohesive as in the national parliaments. And just to make this point here, the leaders of the political families in the European Parliament don't have that kind of power over the parliamentarians to convince them to vote in one direction or another. Parliamentarians are have much more freedom than in the national parliaments. So that makes things more unpredictable. Now, when it comes to the Greek delegation, these are our projections, but here I'm sure you know better the situation on the ground here. The EPP delegation here will be the biggest, I would say by far. Some losses among the left, and these losses are redistributed to the other smaller parties. One thing to mention about advocacy and lobby in Brussels is that we are seeing a significant intensification of this phenomenon in Brussels. The number of meetings between public affairs departments and the MEPs and the commissioners are increasing substantially. Yeah, so public affairs departments are becoming stronger and stronger, more resources, more people being given to these departments. This is the trend that we have seen over the past few years. Now the question is, what will be the impact on the policies with all of these arithmetical changes? We're starting with what we think will be the priorities of the next Commission, and we're starting with the food. There have been the protests of the farmers over the past few months. I'm sure you are aware of them. These cannot stay without consequences. Therefore, we expect food to be a priority, at least at the beginning of the next term. Environmental topics will be somewhat downgraded, but some of them will still remain there, such as concerns for pollution and water management are being already mentioned in the manifestos of both the EPP and the Socialists, so we can expect them to be important. Social policy may get an upgrade. There is a lot of talk about regulatory simplification, especially for small and medium-sized enterprises. We'll have to see if that is the case. Industrial funding, especially for green tech, artificial intelligence, an upgrade of the defense, as I'm sure you are aware of that. We'll probably have a commissioner for defense with enhanced powers, probably coming from Eastern Europe. Now, I'm going to show you a bit how we measure all of these. We have all of those dots in the chart are members of the European Parliament. This is something I've been doing for about 15 years, collecting the data and measuring their positions on every topic. We're now looking at how they position themselves on greening of the energy mix. Those to the right push for a slower transition. Those to the left, that's why you see the green there, push for a very fast transition. Always they have voted for higher targets, more ambitious policies of the European Union when it comes to the Green Deal, the green policy. Now, with the new arithmetics, there will be more dots to the right of this chart, which explain a bit the direction in which the new majority will push in the next parliament. But that change is not the same size in all topics, whereas we expect some bigger changes when it comes to energy. We don't expect much when it comes to regulation of pharmaceutical sector, for example, or the regulation of what we call lifestyle. In lifestyle, we include nutrition, we include tobacco, we include alcohol. There, the parliament will be split down the middle on many issues, so that's why you see that majority line going right through the middle of the chart. And overall, we can expect the next parliament to be more fertile ground for those pushing for a market approach, so more focus on economic competitiveness rather than, let's say, environmental priorities. However, in many of these areas, the middle ground will make the difference. So swing voters will be very, very important in the next cycle. And I'm going to show you why, a few examples. At the top, we're showing how a vote went in this parliament. So this is the vote on the famous Nature Restoration and Protection Law, which was passed in this parliament with 52 to 43%. The same law being put to a vote in the next parliament would be rejected with 44 to 50 with the new arithmetics of the next parliament. So this takes into account the new sizes and assumes that all of the parties will keep their views and they will not change their views. But then public affairs professionals will say, yeah, but this is our job to make them change their views. And indeed, that's your job, to make them have the views that you want. But I'm just presenting the battleground at the beginning of the next political cycle. And the same goes for other matters like commodification of nature, especially water. So for those interested in water management, this will be half-half. Energy performance of buildings, same thing. The majority line going through the undecided MEPs. The yellow shows the yellow zone of MEPs, members of the European Parliament who have not strong views, yeah, one way or the other. Let's see, decoupling electricity prices from the price of gas. Maybe this is a popular issue in Greece. There will be more support in the next parliament for decoupling these prices. However, not everything will be decided by the middle ground. On some other matters, the majorities will still remain overwhelming, such as on nutrition when it comes to using pricing policies to influence demand and affordability of food and drinks in low in saturated and trans fats. So for those producing this kind of drinks or food, there will still be a substantial majority that will want to regulate the consumption of these and use pricing policies to do so, to regulate. On the other hand, when it comes to packaging and the use of the single-use packaging for foods and beverages in the HoReCa premises, the majority of the parliamentarians that oppose a ban on the single-use packaging will increase. Yeah, so those pushing for this will be safer. This is about intellectual property rights in pharmaceutical sector. There will be generally stronger majority for strong protection of intellectual property rights. And I think we're good for now. I just want to show you the situation in the Council as well. The governments across the EU, that's what we have now and what we expect to have at the end of June, when the chief of states and governments will meet to elect the president of the European Commission. Now, the takeaway from this chart is that while the EPP family is likely to win the European elections, they will not be in power in any of the big countries like Germany, France, Italy, and Spain, which means what? Which means it's going to be very difficult for the EPP to push through their candidate as president of the Commission. Very tough negotiations will have to take place. So it's not a given that von der Leyen will be elected. But before we get to von der Leyen, just to say that many of the commissioners will be replaced. Those in green have a chance of coming back to Brussels. Those in red, highly unlikely to do so. So very few of them will come back after the summer. Among them, Monsieur Breton from France is very likely to come back and have a strong voice in the next commission.
Are you so sure about the green color of von der Leyen?
Sorry?
Are you so sure about the green color of von der Leyen?
No. And we'll talk about her immediately. And let's see. This is von der Leyen. This is what we're projecting at the moment. Yeah. So she's more likely than others to come back, but far from certain. Far from certain. And this is where we are at the moment. based on the positioning of the political forces, she has about 41% support, but that's far from the 50% that you will need in the European Parliament. So there's a lot of territory there in the center still to be covered. Yeah, whereas others have already said that they're going to vote against. There are many who just sit on the fence, and where are those yellow, so the undecided? They're pretty much everywhere. So they're including in the EPP, but especially in the Renew group and the Socialists. There are big delegations there, like the Italians in the Socialist group, which haven't said a word about it. And then the other Italians in the Conservative and Reformist, Meloni's delegation, who also haven't said too much about it. So they're waiting until the end to position themselves. Yeah, so those are practically the votes that probably von der Leyen is hoping to get. If she gets to be a president for a second term, but that's a very big if, then we can end up with this kind of structure of the next commission. But here we're more in the area of speculation rather than data-driven analysis. So I prefer to stick with my data where we're more confident. However, what we can expect is that the calendar is going to be more delayed than on other occasions. Usually the president is elected by the parliament in July. This time around is more likely that he or she will be elected in September, which means the entire calendar will be delayed until December or even January, that the next commission is going to effectively start its term. And I think I end here. The only other thing that I wanted to show you before the questions, which is not here, is that we have created a quiz. It's called Euro MP Match. If you haven't decided who to vote for in the elections, you take this quiz, you answer 20 questions, and we'll match you to the best of our knowledge to the MEP of your choice based on their actual votes in the current European Parliament. Thank you very much, and I'm looking forward to your questions.
Join me, Doru. So before opening the floor to all of you, if you have any questions, I would like to mention that I know Doru from Brussels. I second Andreas' original statement that he's a genuine, he has this true knowledge of the EU, and you can really ask whatever you want on his presentation or on any other EU affairs related topic. So with this thing, I open the floor to you. If you have any questions. If not, I will. Yes, please. So, Doru. Yeah? Stevi, please.
Thank you. So, Doru, thank you very much for another really insightful presentation. As you may have seen, Macron earlier today, he gave his infamous speech at the Sorbonne University in Paris, where he called for the creation of a European superhouse in view of the global protectionist and geopolitical threats. So my question to you is, what is your take on the possible creation of a two-speed Europe going forward, given that there is push from some large member states like France to move forward only with the willing member states in order to create either capital markets or defense unions? And secondly, how do you see this transition getting funded? We all recall that in the context of the COVID pandemic, the issuance of joint EU bonds was dubbed as a one-off. But do you see this replicating itself under the new Commission's mandate? Thank you.
Okay. Well, here we're more in the realm of speculation. But what I can say is that Macron is always coming with very ambitious and very big proposals. He has come in the past with the European political community, which has created a lot of fuzz. There were some things happening, some initiatives, some meetings, but it's not like that resulted in a new structure.
French Bonapartism.
Sorry?
French Bonapartism.
Yeah, exactly. So they come up with something all the time. To be honest, that doesn't mean, and if you saw the charts there, and you look at the popularity of Macron at home, that tells you why he's coming up with all of these. It's mainly also for the internal electorate. I dare say, of course. That has implications for the other leaders in Europe, that they all have to react and have to position themselves. But Macron has to, it's in electoral campaign back home as well, and he's not doing well at all. His party is at 18% or so, Marine Le Pen is at 30%. So he has to come up with something to shake the system, to turn the things around. So French initiatives would get more traction, especially in the defense area, and especially if Trump wins in the United States. Because then the narrative that the European Union should create its own defense systems will get more tractions, also from some other countries which otherwise would be more hesitant, especially in Eastern Europe, where they say, okay, we have NATO, let's not upset the Americans, you know, let's stick with them. Clearly, defense will get an upgrade, and clearly the French are in the lead there. Probably they will not be able to put their own commissioner at the helm of the defense. There will be someone from Eastern Europe, and someone like Monsieur Breton and other French to be in a supervisory role as an executive vice president of the Commission, which would cover defense and some of the competitiveness and some other topics. If you ask the French, if you go to Paris and ask the French industry what they think will happen, they will tell you their wishful thinking is that we want the French commissioner to be in charge of defense, competitiveness, and trade, which is a very big portfolio. Yeah? So that's what they're aiming for. But generally, we can expect the French to push for a strong portfolio. And you see not only Macron's statements, but you see the positioning of Breton in Brussels, who has been very critical, attacking von der Leyen quite strongly to try to have as much leverage in the negotiations that will take place in June as possible. Yeah, so you see them being very, very aggressive. Someone would say that they're playing this card almost to put von der Leyen and the Germans between a rock and a hard place, and you know, showing also Mario Draghi as a potential alternative is the last piece in this puzzle. So they're playing quite tough at the moment. Yeah.
So, Doru, a question from me as well. We're going to have a strong presence of the far right in the new European Parliament. Do you see this working as a catalyst, meaning that the traditional coalition of EPP, S&D, and Renew will be forced to cooperate more and in a more good terms? Or do you see it as a block that will cause problems in European regulation and the quality of it?
I think that maybe paradoxically to some, the main winner of these elections will be the EPP in the parliament. Why? Because they will be in a much better position to choose allies from the center, center-left, or to the right of them. They will have plenty of allies to choose from, and build majorities pretty much according to their own will. Whereas in this parliament, the EPP has suffered. People, I mean, you don't know, if you don't look at the data, you don't know. But in this parliament, the socialists have won more votes than EPP. The Renew group has won more votes than EPP. And when it came to the Green Deal files, even the Greens have won more votes than the EPP. So the EPP was suffering a lot. That will not be the case in the next parliament. With the new balance of power, the new arithmetic, EPP will be in a better position. Now, of course, there are, let's say, risks of public relations for the EPP to do too much coalitions to the right of it with the let's say, nationalist or far-right party. So they will have to be careful. Overall, another effect of the new dynamics will be that, contrary to what some would say, I think the parliament will end up having more powers in relation to the Commission than now. And we can see this already in this last two sessions of the parliament. They have voted changes to the rules of procedure. They want the next president of the Commission, as well as the commissioners, to come much more often in the parliament to be accountable, to talk to the MEPs, to be questioned by the MEPs, because they think there wasn't enough control of the executive. And because you will have in the next parliament many more parties which will not be represented in the Commission, like many in the ECR, many in the ID, will not have commissioners. So they will have no interest in supporting the Commission. Therefore, they will use their parliamentary instruments to hold the Commission accountable. They will ask a lot of questions. They will question a lot of the activities of the Commission, and the Commission will have to come to answer. So overall, I think the Parliament will gain powers, and the Commission will have to work much harder to build majorities in the parliament.
That's true. I would like to thank you, Doru, for your presence here. Thank you.